Ryan, it says we're live. It's Parker Gabriel, Ryan McFadden, Denver Post reporters coming to you live and in color from Empower Field. We just watched the Broncos lose 17-16 to the Raiders. For a while, it looked like Denver had a chance to take control of the game, and then in the end, they squandered that opportunity, lost by a point. Ryan, first blush, we've been writing, haven't even had a chance to really talk about the game ourselves. First blush, what did you make of what you just saw?
The Broncos. I think that's the best way. That's the best way to say it. I look at the game overall. I felt like Russ had a solid day, especially in that first half. He was very efficient. I like the way he was, getting out the pocket. I like some of the play calling from Sean Payton, getting guys open down the field. But I felt like they shot themselves in the foot big time in terms of penalties, especially the penalties. They really shot themselves in the foot there. I really think like stuff like that, those mental errors can really cost a lot of momentum for a team, and we saw that with the Broncos this afternoon. I know some people might look at that. Some people might have questions about Sean Payton's going for an onside kick on an opening kickoff, but I honestly don't see a problem with it. If it wasn't for the penalty, they actually pulled it off. And I think it kind of is for me. I think when you look at that, I think Payton looked at it as a way where this is week one. It's not like he did it on week 17 and they're fighting for a play, like on a week 17 and they're fighting for a playoff spot. They did for week one, and it kind of shows like the type of tone he wants to set here in Denver. So, but overall, I felt like this was a game where it's like, even though you're supposed to have it like Russell Wilson, but he looks like the same guy we saw in Seattle a little bit. We got a new coach, but like the same issues that plagued the Broncos last year popped up, and especially with the penalties, and you can't have those if you want to be a playoff football team.
Yeah, you weren't here yet last year, week one, but the parallels between this game and a game by the same score, 17-16, in Seattle last year, just incredible. Double-digit penalties. They had the ball in the red zone, and they couldn't punch it in the end zone. Just the list sort of goes on and on. So obviously, it's a tough way to start. The way this will go here, anybody that's watching, comment, questions, concerns, grievances, anything you got, throw it in the comments, and we'll get to as many as we can here. For a little while, Scott on Facebook says it felt familiar, and yeah, I mean that's exactly what it was. And so then the question becomes, what happens next, right? I mean, like, it did feel familiar, like you say, all the same problems that have plagued them in past years plagued them again today. And that's despite Sean Payton spending the last 7 months literally trying to change every single thing about the organization. When you eat lunch, how you practice, when you practice, who watches practice, how they paint the field, like literally everything is different. And yet the result in week one is the same. It was interesting, Ryan. I mean, in the locker room after the game, there wasn't a lot of panic. Like, Twitter's one thing, and fans obviously watch, and that they think one thing, and then you go in the locker room and guys are like, yeah, I mean, it's week one, everyone's trying to get better. Sean Payton, I thought somewhat prophetically, as it turns out this week, after practice, said the first quarter of the season is a sprint. You're trying to get, everybody, you don't quite know what you have. You see what you have week one, and then you spend the next 3 or 4 weeks trying to figure out who you are and get, better as quickly as possible. And that's the Broncos are doing that from a position of being 0-1 now. But Mike McGlinchey echoed that sentiment. Alex Singleton echoed that sentiment after the game. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously it's if you're a Broncos fan and you're frustrated, that's well within your right. And we'll sort of see what happens from here. Scott said, pass rush absent, no pressure. Why keep Mathis one-on-one all game? He got burned all games. Ryan, first up, the pressure. They really didn't get a lot of heat on Jimmy Garoppolo over the course of the game.
Oh no, he has 0 sacks, and it's just like I thought they did a good job in terms of their run defense, but in terms of like their pass rush, I feel like it was absent completely. They couldn't generate any pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. I feel like they gave him a lot of time to make plays in the pocket and to go off of that Mathis guy. I really thought Damari Mathis had a pretty rough game.
Yeah,
allowed 2 touchdowns, including that go-ahead touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Jacoby Myers really had his way on him. It was just, to me, it was just a pretty rough day overall for Damari Mathis. But yeah, going back to that pass rush, they really got to step that up because they got the talent there. We saw it in the preseason. We know what Randy Gregory can do. We know what Frank Clark can provide. But I felt like that was something they really need to get to step up as we progress, because that's going to be key for this defense.
Yeah, definitely. And you heard Zach Allen in the locker room after the game made the point that because Jimmy Garoppolo has such a reputation of getting the ball out quickly, they knew that it probably wasn't going to be a 4-sack outing or anything like that, which that's all well and good, but they didn't really make him uncomfortable that often either, even on the quick release stuff. Alex Singleton put one good hit on him at one point in the game, but if you want to contain, that's fine. You've got to cover behind it, and you also can't let Jimmy Garoppolo beat you with his legs. They did a pretty good job of that until the critical moment, and he got 8 yards on 3rd and 7 to put the game away right after the 2-minute warning. Moxon says, same old VJ defense. Yeah, in some ways, I thought in a lot of ways it was similar to the defense that we saw last year from Denver too. Under Ejiro Evero, they were good. They were solid. They gave up almost nothing in the run game. Vegas had, I think they averaged 2.1 yards per carry. So they finally slowed down Josh Jacobs. And, what did it get him? Not much at the end. Still a loss. So it's both sides. Well, actually, all 3 phases. Kicking game, maybe more acutely than even the offense or the defense. All 3 phases, obviously, plenty to clean up after an opening loss. Scott says, get on the wire and get a couple of cornerbacks in here yesterday. Listen, the first 2 weeks are really active typically on the player front. Ryan, obviously they've got Fabian Moreau, who they can go to if they want to. Didn't play much besides special teams tonight. And also I was a little surprised that Jaquan McMillan was inactive tonight, given the way we've seen him play in camp and also late last season.
Yeah, I was shocked about that too, because I feel like Jaquan McMillan had a really solid camp. You saw him getting a lot, especially when there was times where let's say Damari Mathis wasn't playing, maybe due to injury or whatever the case may be.
Yep.
You saw him getting a lot of working with the ones. I thought him and Esam Bassi, those are 2 guys in that secondary that really stood out. And that stood out during training camp and in preseason. So I was a little bit shocked about that move in particular as well.
Andrew says the offense does make me hopeful. They played well and actually got points on the board other than field goals. Yeah, that's true. Although, was it early in the fourth quarter when after the Kareem Jackson interception, they go all the way down. They look good. They're up 3. They can push it to 10 with a touchdown. They get to 1st and goal on the 8, and then they threw it 3 straight times. Especially after you'd sort of started to establish the run game. It's always easy to sit here and say should have done this or should have done that from a play calling perspective. But I was surprised that in that moment, 1st and goal at the 8, 3 straight passes, a short completion to Troutman, and then 2 incompletions, and they kick a field goal to go up 16-10. So totally agree with you, Andrew. There were things to like about the offensive performance. Javonte Williams getting back involved, obviously. You're going to win and lose games by what you do on both sides of the ball in the red zone.
Yeah, overall, that was when you guys like Javonte Williams and Shamazi P. Brown. I feel like when you watch them play, they're really tough guys to bring down.
Yep.
Especially those 2 guys are some I don't look at them like very speedy guys,
right?
But they're very violent runners where it's going to take more than one guy just to bring them down. And I think when you have 2 backs like that, I feel like that play right there where you threw the ball 3 straight times in the red zone. I feel like you got to take advantage of one of those backs, given their strength. Overall, I thought the offense did a lot of pleasing things. When you look, I think one of my concerns is this. One, you could mention it, the impact of Greg Dulcich getting hurt with that leg injury played a part, because I feel like Russell Wilson really did a good job utilizing both tight ends, Trotman and Dulcich, in the first half. And also too is when you're playing against a secondary like the Raiders, where they don't have a lot of talent there. I feel like you got to take advantage of that. And I feel like the wide receivers did not take advantage of that didn't take advantage of that at all. Excuse me. All your guys. You had no wide receiver get more than 50 yards receiving throughout the whole game. And I feel like even without Jerry Jeudy, I think having Cortland Sutton, having
Yep.
someone like Marvin Mims, I feel like they had enough talent to kind of like take advantage of that secondary. And I feel like they didn't get that done as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ryan. I mean, that Russell Wilson, he was 27 of 34, I think, 177 yards, and he had completions to 11 different guys. So you like the willingness to go with the ball where the defense sort of dictates. At the same time, part of the reason why so many guys had catches was because two guys that at the end of training camp or midway through training camp, you said were going to be featured players, Jerry Jeudy and Greg Dulcich, end up Judy's out with a hamstring injury. Maybe he'll be back next week. And then Dulcich, drops out during that 2-minute drill. He ran a deep route, kind of limped off. I thought maybe he was taking himself out of the game because he was way down the field and they were trying to go hurry up. But he was sort of limping too, and then we never saw him again. So we'll have to see, what his status is there. But the reality is, and this gets to Scott's question about why no deep balls, they just don't have anybody on offense who scares defensive coordinators. I mean, that's the thing. Like Jeudy is that guy, and he's out. And when he's not on the field for Denver, it's like, yeah, especially when Russell Wilson plays the way he did today, like you have to sort of defend him. Cortland Sutton, can be that guy, but he's not a take the top off guy. And a guy like Marvin Mims hasn't proved it yet. So they've got some capable players, but they just lack those guys right now that strike the fear in the heart of the other team. And it shows with the way teams play them. So that's something that you can't just solve overnight. Maybe Marvin Mims develops, Jerry Jeudy will come back. You hope Greg Dulcich doesn't miss too much time. But in the meantime, this is sort of, who they are on offense.
Yeah. And one thing, and you hit the point there. It's like when you look at the rosters, like when you look at Greg Dulcich, you look at Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims, you see that talent. Like someone mentioned Mims has speed. Yes, he does. It's like, but at the same time, it's like some of those guys like a Mims, like a Brent, like they're still improving. There's like, it's not like a defense is going in and saying, yeah, we got to double team Marvin Mims,
right,
or we got to double team Brandon Johnson. They don't have, like you said, they don't have that guy that like opponents go in and say, yeah, we got to lock in on that guy.
Right.
So I think that really hurts that team. And we saw it today when not having Jerry Jeudy.
Yep.
I feel like Jerry, like his absence played an impact. Russ said it as well. Payne's and he even mentioned losing Greg Dulcich for the entire second half played an impact, and we saw that with the offense. Like we said, there's a lot of good things to take away from what the offense did. I thought they moved the ball a lot better. I thought one telling sign of like the offense trending in the right direction is how they handled that 2-minute drill to close out the first half.
Really
I thought Russell Wilson looked excellent. I thought overall that was something you didn't see a lot from them last year, and I thought they did a good job there. So it's like if you want to take in some positives away from this game, I feel like the offense showed enough where it's like, especially Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has, he's received a lot, from what happened last year. A lot of doubt in terms of does he still got it anymore, or like are we nearing the end of the tail end of his career? But I feel like he showed today and like moments, especially in that first half, throughout the first half, that he still got it, and he showed he can still lead this team. And it's gonna be interesting to see how it develops, how they develop as the season progresses. Whenever they get Dulcich back, whenever they get Jeudy back, and how the offense looks after that. But yeah, I would say the offense did show some good signs, but that whole thing with, like you said, not having a true guy that puts the fear in a defense's heart, I think that's gonna hurt. That hurts this team a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. It just allows defenses to sort of play top down and keep it in front and make teams go the length of the field where a holding penalty or a sack, ends drives. At the end of the day, if you would have told me going into this that Denver was going to hold Josh Jacobs to 19 carries for 48 yards, 2.5 carries, and that Devontae Adams would have 6 catches for 66, and neither guy would get in the end zone, I would have said, oh, well, how does Denver not win that game?
Oh, yeah, I thought they did a good job in containing both, and especially Josh Jacobs. I felt like when you look back at the games last year, like he changed the game for them. In the first
100%.
game, he rushed for 144 yards. Then the next game, he had that big reception down the stretch that led to that game time field goal that took them to overtime. So like the way he opens games and impacts, and then obviously Devontae Adams, what he did with that walk-off touchdown last year, I felt like Pat Surtain did a good job shadowing him.
Yep.
I believe he had like three pass breakups. You can tell like he probably took that matchup personal after what happened last year. So I thought he did a really good job and slowing them down. But yeah, like when you hold those two guys the way they did, you got to take advantage of that. And obviously they didn't do that.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about the kicker, Will Lutz, obviously, who Denver traded for, a guy that Sean Payton knows and trusts, missed an extra point and then missed a 54-yard field goal. And he said it after the game, 4 points and a 1-point loss. You can put it on him, and it's obviously not all on him. They had 10 penalties. They had all kinds of other things that you want to see cleaned up. But I'm guessing if Sean Payton were to have told you about the pitfalls of this game going into it, he wouldn't have put the guy that he wanted and went out and got on the trade market at kicker as one of the guys that that misses a couple of kicks. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I think obviously they swapped draft picks, but they moved back in the draft next year to get him. So they're going to give him some leash, but nobody has unlimited leash, especially kickers. And so, we'll see how he bounces back. Let's do one more here, Ryan, and then we'll get out of here. Appreciate everybody that's in here and contributing. Andrew said it's only week one. Defense needs to make smarter decisions and less mistakes, but you can see a difference, and I believe good things are yet to come. Let's get to the first part first, Ryan, and then we'll get to the second part. There was a critical play, obviously, late. It was a 3rd and 8 for Las Vegas. Pass over the middle to Jacoby Myers, and Kareem Jackson hit him. He was down short, but he hit him up high in the head, and it was a personal foul. Jacoby Myers was down for a couple minutes, so obviously the first thing that Kareem said about it is, I hope he's okay. You don't set out to hurt anybody. But there were, and Vegas did the same thing. I mean, Vegas tried to hand this game to Denver all sorts of different ways, penalties and key moments. But, Frank Clark jumped off sides on 3rd and 3 and gave him a first down. That penalty became a first down. They had the 2 defensive pass interference penalties on a Vegas touchdown drive, one from Surtain, one from Mathis. And that kind of stuff hurts you, right? I mean, they had the illegal touch on the opening onside kick that looked like it had a real chance. I mean, Denver did recover it, but Traymon Smith touched it at 9 yards. So all these things and a lot of the penalties just seem like cropped up in critical situations.
Yeah, and I think I think some people sometimes might miss that aspect of the sport. It's like that mental aspect, and that can really come back to bite you.
Yeah,
and we've seen that practice. We've seen how Sean Payton reacted to like them doing 2-minute drills towards the end of practice, and they get back-to-back full start calls or a full start and a holding call, and he just comes to the podium and is just like furious about that. So I know he couldn't be pleased that everything he tried to avoid, everything he tried to coach about during training camp, it's like it just popped up once again. Yeah. And I'm confident I'm confident Sean Payton getting these guys together to fix it. But yeah, that's you just can't have that. You can't expect to win games committing 10 penalties because you're giving the opponent a lot of opportunities. You're taking momentum away. You're taking momentum away from yourself, and we saw that there. I feel like every time, like whether the defense had momentum, offense had momentum, it's just something minor just pops up, and it's just just changes the course of the game. And we saw that today.
Yep, that's exactly right. I mean, it's one of those things. What I wrote was, you need scheme and you need talent and you need all that stuff to win in the NFL, but the biggest challenge that Sean Payton, I think, has going forward with this team is trying to convince them that it's not going to be like it's been in years past, where those things, continue to haunt you through a season, and that all of those little things. They had lost 9 one-score games last year. So that's what it's going to take. It's the old chicken and the egg. Do you learn how to win? It takes winning to learn how to win. And if you don't, then how do you learn? And so that's, we'll learn that answer 1 week at a time, starting right back here at Empower Field next Sunday against Washington. We're going to try to do this once during the week, probably 2, maybe Thursdays in the evenings. So keep an eye out. like, subscribe on Facebook and YouTube. You can get notifications whenever we're gonna go live and do this. Come by and chat with us as often as you can, and obviously check out denverpost.com/Broncos for all kinds of coverage from Ryan, from me, from our whole crew at the Post, Mark Kisla, Sean Keeler, everybody else that covers the Broncos over the course of the year. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Broncos lose week 1, 17-16 at home to the Raiders. We'll talk to you guys next time.